Welcome, everyone, to It's a Wrap with Rap. I am your host, Ron Rappaport. This podcast features people who have overcome life's challenges and adversities, people who can inspire and motivate, and people who can educate us on an assortment of topics. My guest today is James Burns, who is an anti-bullying specialist. Since 1977, Jim has been working with students who have learning disabilities and behavioral problems. He has almost 40 years experience working as an administrator, teacher, college instructor, and a seminar leader. He is committed to helping administrators, parents, and teachers establish standards of excellence and to help them build successful relationships with their staff, students, and children. He has written and designed the Bullyproof Classroom, a graduate course that is offered at the College of New Jersey and LaSalle University in Pennsylvania in partnership with the Regional Training Center and is endorsed by the New Jersey Education Association. Jim was awarded the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters of recognition of his work in the area of anti-bullying. He has also written several books on the topic of anti-bullying and classroom climate. His book, Anti-Bullying 101, is a great resource for teachers, administrators, support staff, and parents as it provides permanent help in dealing with unruly behavior and can be used as part of any anti-bullying program. Welcome, Jim, to the podcast.
Oh, thank you, Ron. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Honor. Let's start out. I want to ask you, Jim, what inspired you to go into the education field?
If you want the true answer, I was raised over a bar. And my mom and dad ran the bar, and both of them being self-employed, and we're going back 60, 70 years now. They were more into hiding money in a mattress than paying into Social Security or any of the other things, and they had no health benefits. So in our house, you never got sick, or if you were sick, they would tell you that you weren't. So consequently, there were two things that I wanted, truthfully, from over the course of my life. And that was, number one, I wanted health benefits. And number two, I wanted to make sure that when I retired, I had Social Security. And I discovered that when I was about 20. Those were two things I wanted because I never had them in my
very good things to want.
So yeah, so I went to college, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. Matter of fact, I was almost thrown out my freshman year because I really didn't quite get college life. And I was still working for my father in the bar, and I figured I was going to take over the bar. He wanted me to go to college. He came to me and he said to me, I told him, I said, take a look at these grades. I says, I'm never going to make it. And he says, well, you're going to have to make it because I'm selling the bar. I can't do it anymore. When I found that out, the one thing that motivated me was fear, because I didn't want to be left not knowing what to do.
Yeah.
And I started talking to a few people, talked to a few professors on the campus, and they inspire, and I happened to like one or two professors, and I got inspired over the years. And by the time I was a junior in college, I was pretty well convinced I wanted to be a teacher. So I went into teaching, and I became a special ed teacher in 1977.
Goes back a long way. What sparked your interest in the subject of bullying?
Well, I think experience does that. Living in a very tough town where you wanted to play outside, and there were bullies all over the place. And I got bullied, other kids got bullied. And it wasn't until I was about 30 where I started to wonder, why am I the way I am? Number one, I did have some fears. I didn't have the confidence that I would like. I certainly didn't know how to have productive conflict or confrontations. And I think that's part of the problem today is kids don't understand productive conflict. So they kind of go along to get along. They don't know how to have a confrontation with somebody. And sometimes you have to have those to draw your boundaries. I mean, even with little kids, one of the things that I teach them is just to say, stop, knock it off
Yeah.
when someone's bullying you. So I went through a period where I started to realize that, and I did dwell on some of the kids that bullied me as a kid. I did think about it. And I said, this is it. I mean, this is probably part of my issue anyway. And I started to do more and more research into bullying. I started to work with kids who were in school who were bullied. I became an administrator, and I had to overcome the fear of being yelled at, because administrators, nobody knows it, but they always get yelled at, either by a parent, a teacher,
Yeah.
a kid, somebody's yelling at them.
Right.
And I had to overcome that fear. And it's basically a lifelong challenge and a lifelong battle. And it's something that my friend is a Civil War expert. He's written books on the Civil War. And when they have nice events and everything, they call him. And he goes and he gives a little talk, and he has Civil War regalia and memorabilia and so on. And I was telling my wife the other day, I said, I only get called when somebody gets killed, somebody gets hazed, somebody gets bullied, something goes wrong. That's when they call me. So
Well, thank God they got somebody to call.
Yeah, right.
Right.
That's exactly right. And so I said, so there you go. You're either going to get called to go and have some fun, or you're going to get or to give a talk on a topic related to the Civil War. You're going to get called because somebody just shot up a school. So
Yeah.
I get called for the latter.
Jim, can you describe to us the state of bullying in the schools as of today?
Well, I think that in New Jersey, we have the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights. This came about after, and matter of fact, the Bullyproof classroom was written in response to the Tyler Clemente suicide. That was the young lad from Rutgers who was videotaped by another student in his dorm room with a man.
Oh, yeah.
And he became so despondent, embarrassed. He didn't know how to deal with his parents and everything, and he jumped off the George Washington Bridge. And so they started what was the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights, where every school has to report and they have to do things, that where bullies have to have a hearing, and so on. The problem that you have with it is I'm not convinced that we discipline bullies to the extent that we're going to stop them from doing what they're doing.
Okay.
I'm not sure that that's happening. See, an intervention is only an intervention if, in fact, the behavior stops.
Right.
If I go to my teacher and tell the teacher that I'm being bullied and the behavior continues, then the intervention didn't work.
Right.
Because whatever the teacher did, whether she or he said I was going to have a good talk with the kid, I'm going to call the kid's mother, whatever. And so the victims are the ones who are left to try and fend for themselves. And in public school, and probably private schools, and in our culture in general, we have victims who don't have the confidence, courage. They don't have the resiliency. They're not taught, that you only have to be courageous for 2 minutes at a time. And my whole approach to this is where you have no victims, you have no bullies.
Right.
So if there's kids that are not being victimized, then the bullies are losing. But if all we do is discipline the bully, and by the way, a discipline is only as good as in terms of whether or not it stops the behavior or not.
Right.
That's it. I mean, if it doesn't
Yeah.
stop the behavior, what good is it? And I'm a big believer in very large scale consequences for bullies. And you have to figure out what the greatest loss is for them, because life is based on gain and loss. What am I going to gain? What am I going to lose? If
Right,
the loss
right.
isn't great enough, the behavior is going to continue. So I think we have to spend more time. We have more kids right now who are mentally ill, more kids with trauma, more kids right now who are depressed, suicidal, have anxiety in schools today. And there's a percentage of those kids who were bullied. And if we're not doing something for them, we're not doing our job to try and stop the bullying, because those are the kids that are suffering.
Jim,
A bully's going to forget what he did in 10 minutes.
right.
But bullying is behavior for a victim that they'll never forget.
That's true. What are some of the causes, in your opinion, of why bullying is so prevalent in our schools?
Well, it's domination, Ron. I mean, people want to dominate. And this is, I'm sorry you're hearing this. I should have shut this off, but I apologize.
Oh, no problem.
It's based on domination and manipulation. Bullies dominate kids that they know they can get away with it.
Yeah.
They'll dominate those kids, and bullies will always bully those that are different and those that are weak. Those are the two reasons that bullying takes place. Now, as an example, many years ago, I had my daughter, who was about 4 at the time, maybe 5. We were at my sister's house, and we were having, I don't know if it was Thanksgiving dinner or maybe it was Christmas dinner. And my daughter, sitting on a chair with 6 adults around the table, when it was kind of in between main course and dessert, one of those things where people are sitting, smoking and drinking coffee the whole time. And my daughter's sitting there on her legs, and she's sitting up, and she's got 6 adults playing the rhyming game. This is a kid that's 4 years old, 5 years old. And my oldest sister leaned over to me and she said to me, she's controlling the whole table. You see, and if behavior, and she was right, if behavior like that isn't stopped at a young age, it's really easy to give in to a whining child.
Yeah.
Little kid, 2 or 3 years old, because you want him to stop.
Right.
Bottom line is, if you give in to him and he knows that you give in to him, he'll know the way that he can get what he'll know, just the correct approach to get what he wants when he wants it. And he'll believe that he can do anything he wants when he wants to do it as well. And that includes bullying and intimidating. And he will learn how to manipulate. They'll learn how to lie. They'll learn how to do a lot of things, but it's based on domination and manipulation.
Jim, what areas of the school campus does bullying take place the most?
Most, and I'll use this as a broad term, in the unsupervised areas.
Okay.
And that could be the hallway at the high school when kids are going in between classes. It could be in a bathroom. It could be in the back of a classroom where the teacher's in the front of the room. And I will say this, and I've talked about this many times, kids, we don't have it anymore because of the fact that, no, we don't have it right now because of COVID, but kids for years were in school, were always sitting in these little pods.
Right.
They were called cooperative groups. So it would be like me, you, somebody else, 4 people sitting in a cooperative group. Well, we don't know what goes on in those groups. We don't know if bullying's going on right there. We have no idea because we're not going around the room to every group all the time.
Right.
And there may be things that are said in those groups. You see, that stuff didn't happen years ago because we sat in rows.
Yeah.
But the minute you start to crowd kids together and kids start talking and kids become vulnerable, they think they have a friend. They become vulnerable. They share information that now this kid has, that another kid has who could be a potential bully. And because of the vulnerability, they start using the information against them. And that happens because there's a lot of talking in those groups, and kids say things and they do silly things, and then they start getting picked on, and the teacher doesn't know what to do with it. Then they start calling parents, they call the parents, the kid gets bullied worse because that intervention didn't work, because the
Right.
kid's not listening to his parent either.
Yeah. What programs are being taught to teachers and administrators to thwart this epidemic of bullying? What programs are being taught?
Well, in New Jersey, we have the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights. And I think that, once again, Ron, programs are only good if they work.
Right.
See, we had character ed. Remember character ed? That was the big thing. We had to teach character education in schools. Character education is only good if the kid that gets the certificate really displayed the character quality of kindness.
Yeah.
You get 30 kids in a classroom, 30 kids in a classroom. Okay, every one of them has got to get something. So they all got to get a certificate before the end of the year. So you're gonna try and find something that this kid did. You know, he'll get the neatness award because he picked up a scrap of paper. My question to the teacher was, did you ask him to pick it up? Because half of the time, when you know, like a kid will go over, I'll say to and I remember in the high school, I said to a kid, pick up that piece of paper over there. I'll never forget it. The teacher said to me, boy, that kid listened to you really well. He picked up that paper, you know. So I said, you think he would have picked that paper up if I didn't ask him to do it?
Yeah.
You know, there's no initiative, you know. So you have character ed programs that are supposed to be something that's supposed to work. But again, they only work if, in fact, the reward for what you're doing, okay, is very, very individualized, and not everybody's getting it. It goes back to the idea of everyone gets the trophy. So
Yeah.
we know that story. Then you have, in New Jersey, you have the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights. We have October is Anti-Bullying Month. Well, you know, I've talked to administrators, I've talked to the state, and I've told them, you only have to forget character qualities, forget Anti-Bullying Month. I said, you only have to work on 3 behaviors all year long, and stick with these 3 behaviors all year long, and work and discipline kids for not exhibiting them, and use your head in terms of consequences, and you will stop bullying in its tracks. And the 3 behaviors are respect, which means you have a high regard for the rights of another person.
Right.
Responsibility, meaning you're going to take responsibility for your thoughts, words, actions, attitudes, and motives. You're responsible for those things. Okay. And the last one, and people get on me about this, but it's compliance. Everyone has to comply with somebody or something. And I used to use the word obedience, and teachers got on me because they thought it was like dog training.
Yeah.
So I said,
Yeah.
all right, we'll use compliance. But it's
Yeah.
the same thing. And compliance is doing what you're told, when you're told to do it, with a good attitude. And if we just stuck with that, we
Yeah.
would do good.
How much of the bullying problem, in your opinion, do you think is fueled due to cultural shifts, violence seen on TV, movies, video games, that kind of thing?
Well, I think one of the statistics that was in the course, and of course the course is 10 years old right now. Like one of the games that is one of the highest selling games back then was Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah.
There's a lot of shooting and killing of people. Supposedly, before a kid gets to school, he's witnessed on TV 8,000 murders on TV. That's another very stark statistic. That's a very large statistic. I think that when you look at a television program, and most programs are set up, you know, by today's standards, where you have villain and then you have the hero.
Right.
And there's always a revenge factor involved with the hero. His kid was killed, he was maimed, something happened. And you always discover that the hero is looking to get even. And my question to a lot of people in school and in general is, how did you feel when the guy got even? Like Steven Seagal years ago, that movie, did anybody see Richie? They're looking for Richie because Richie killed his partner or something. And when he got Richie at the end in the movie theater, everyone went crazy because he got his revenge.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of it. I think we all want to get back. We all want to get even with those who have hurt us. And when we see it happen on TV, it almost just feeds that inner desire and say, yeah, he got him. And you start feeling really good about it.
Yeah. Do kids fear anything? Are our students today somewhat immune to the systemic consequences that the schools offer, such as detention, suspensions, no recess, that sort of thing?
Yeah, they don't fear anything. They're
Really?
not afraid. They're not afraid of those consequences. Here's what needs to happen. All right, in terms of consequences, they don't fear those because their parents don't make them fear those. You get a detention. You know, when I was you and I, you did something in school and you got held in after school. You know, your father. You heard about it from your father. He didn't ask you. You know, why were you late for coming home? He knew you were late because something went wrong. Something
Right.
didn't go right.
Right.
Now, if you go back to my thought on gain and loss, let's go back to that for a minute. What am I going to gain? What am I going to lose? I had and I'm not even going to tell you what this youngster did, but many years ago, I had a youngster do something terrible in a school. He came down to my office. And the kid's a baseball player.
Yeah.
The kid's a baseball player. It's February. Comes down to my office. And of course, because of the behavior, I had to suspend him. But what I did do and what I wanted to do, and there was a battle that I had, and I will tell you that I lost the battle, was I went to the athletic director and said, I want him benched for the first 3 games of the baseball season. And she said to me, it's February. I says, what does that matter? That's what means the most to him. He
Right.
needs to know he's going to lose something of large consequence, of the meaning to him is so important that
Yeah,
he doesn't want to do it.
The value.
There's value to what he had. Now, I used to come back in on Monday morning, and there was just a football game on Saturday in the high school that I was working at, and I would get referrals on the football players, on some of them. Most of the players were good kids, but some of them, they were not too good.
Yeah.
Referral would come in on Monday. The game, I would figure out when the game was. You know, it could be on a Friday night or it could have been on a Saturday. So what would I do? I deal with the referral on Thursday, and I'd suspend the kid so he couldn't play football on Friday because he got
Right.
suspended.
Yeah.
Rather than say, okay, I'm going to deal with it now, and he's back in school on Wednesday. If I suspend him on Tuesday, I'd suspend him on Thursday afternoon for Friday. The coach went crazy. He says, well, what's the date on this referral? I says, it was Monday. He says, what are you suspending him now for? I says, because I don't want him to play. That's why.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
And he didn't like that.
No, of course not. He would have liked it even less if the kid was a frontline player, a first string player that he needed. He certainly wasn't going to have me suspending the quarterback,
Right.
you know, but if the quarterback, you see, that's the other thing was what we went through here. If in fact this stuff happens, you cannot, as an administrator, have fear. See, that's what happens. The parents, the Board of Ed, teachers, students, they try to instill fear in you so you don't do the things that you want to do that's really going to stop behavior.
Yeah.
Poor behavior from occurring.
In your opinion, do these anti-bullying programs work?
I think it's kind of like having an elliptical machine in your house.
Yeah.
Somebody says to you, does it work? I mean, it works if you use it.
Yeah.
You know, we have an anti-bullying program. We have anti-bullying campaigns. We have all kinds of anti-bullying. Anything works if it's used and used correctly. If it's in other words, if I have an anti-bullying program, but I'm always trying to bend the rules, you know, to get around it, or a parent comes in and starts yelling at me as an administrator or as a teacher, and I kind of bend the rules a little bit around this program because I'm intimidated, then they don't work. If the rules are put in place, in other words, you could say to a kid in September, anyone who has 5 referrals before December doesn't go to the Christmas party. Right? You could tell them, say that to a kid. That's a great rule. But the problem that you got is you could have a kid get 5 referrals by the end of September. Now what do you do?
Yeah.
What am I going to do with him now? He's going to be cutting up all over the place because he knows he has nothing to lose now. So what the teacher does then is they say, well, okay, we're going to give you a chance to earn it back. We're going to give you a chance now to earn it back. You can, if you do this and this, we'll take away 1 referral, we'll give you another chance, you know, and so on. Because they put a rule in place that they could never enforce. It could never be enforced because for the kids that really act up, 5 referrals, I mean, it's nothing. They have 5 referrals in 2 weeks.
Wow. Yeah.
So you want to make sure that you can enforce the rules and that you use the programs wisely.
It's got to be frustrating for you. I'm getting that vibe from you. At times, that job of yours must be very frustrating.
Well, you know, Ron, I've said stuff for years. I've said stuff for years about this topic. And one of the things that I've said is the same thing I've said to you. It is a matter of gain and loss. And if the bully needs the consequence that's meaningful and needs to be enforced without fear. And the victim needs the counseling, the therapy, needs the resiliency, needs to develop the confidence and the courage to go forward.
Yeah.
And if a victim sees that the person that bullied them was truly held accountable, they won't be cycling in their head that video, that movie that they just saw, where the hero got even, okay, and shot up a place. Okay,
Yeah.
that's what's going to cycle through this kid's head, because if he feels as if that they didn't do anything to help me out.
Jim, talk about the role of the rescuer and the collaborator in the bully issue for our audience.
You have two different roles there. Number one, the rescuer is someone who wants to help the victim, but doesn't know how to perform what I call a good rescue. Because what a rescuer will do unwittingly is confront the bully and get into a fight with the bully.
Right.
What the rescuer needs to know how to do is they have to know how to remove the victim. So if a kid is being bullied, is being victimized by another kid, what the rescuer has to do is go in, take the victim and say, hey, come on, let's go down to the cafeteria, or I'll walk you to class, or we can, we'll talk about what we're going to do after school or something like that. You don't want to confront the bully, because when you start answering a fool like that, when you start confronting that fool, that bully, okay, what begins to happen is you could end up, okay, jumping right into the same pot with them. and you'll end up having a fight with him, and you don't want to have a fight with him. You want to help the kid that's being bullied.
Right.
That's the rescuer. The collaborator, I've always likened him to Dr. Frankenstein's Igor, or someone that did the bully's bidding. He will collaborate with the bully, and he will find people for the bully to bully, just by saying, hey, look at him, how stupid he looks, or how funny is this kid. And once he shares the information, he'll back off from back out of the situation, so he doesn't look bad, and let the bully do the dirty work. But meanwhile, he's the one that fed the bully the victim.
Jim, please discuss and tell our audience what cyberbullying is, and describe the following terms to us. And I'm going to read the terms, and we can go over it if time permits.
Sure.
Flaming, email threats and dissemination, exclusion, harassment, phishing, impersonation, denigration, cyber stalking. If you want to just pick up on some of those.
Sure. Well, cyberbullying is nothing more than using because we're in the information era right now, and we use technology, and cyberbullying is nothing more than the use of technology to denigrate or to pick on another person. The problem with cyberbullying, and cyberbullying has gotten way bigger than we could ever have imagined, because it's more like cyber hacking now. And my wife and I spoke the other day about, you get a refrigerator that's computerized, your refrigerator could get turned off one day and you won't even know how it happened.
Yeah.
Because they hack into computers.
Right.
With cyberbullying, there was an old expression: you have to keep your friends close and your enemies closer. With cyberbullying, lots of times you don't know who your enemy is. You don't know what's going on. You don't know, who sent you that thing that says, I wish you would die, because they can disguise their name. As an example, I had a kid, and they came in with his mother and father, came into my office on a Monday morning, and they had an email from another student who was in the school, a very threatening email that was sent to their son. And I pulled the other kid down. I said to him, what happened here? What's going on? He said, I didn't do that. It came right from your computer. What are you talking? So I suspended the kid.
Right.
But something told me that there was something wrong with the whole thing. And what was wrong with it was they were doing homework or something, but the computer was open, the email screen was open, and the kid who owned that computer and was his email address, the kid that he was with hated another kid, and he sent him a hate message through this kid's computer. And I ended up dealing with the kid who owned the computer, but it was actually his friend that did it.
Wow. Yeah, you got to really be careful when you got your computer screens open.
Right. So flaming is basically like a real bad argument online that involves profanity, vulgarity, and they're usually done on discussion boards and news groups. You could find them in forums sometimes, where people are arguing back and forth,
Okay.
with one another. You have email threats. That's basically exactly what I just shared with you.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to get away with that now, because they can trace these emails and they know exactly who sent what now. But years ago, that was something that happened to instill fear and intimidation into people. That's all there was to it. But now it's very hard to do. Exclusion is nothing more than sending provocative messages to the target that they're not included in certain social activities. In other words, I'm going to so-and-so's party, you're not.
Right.
Now, I'm going to explain something to your audience, Ron. We have this thing here in New Jersey where if I'm having a birthday party at my house, I cannot invite 10 people in my class and not invite everybody else.
Oh,
And so in other words, you have to send invitations to those 10 people outside of school because they're afraid that people will view that as exclusion. In other words, I'm going to Ron Rappaport's party, you're not.
gotcha.
Well, part of the problem is I worked in a school. I was an administrator. I might have had a little end of the year party for 5 people that I had a closer relationship with than some of the other teachers. I
Right.
can't invite a whole school. The boss can't invite an entire, maybe 50 people or whatever it is to a
Right.
party.
Right.
And kids are getting the impression now that everybody's got to come. And if I have to have a party, okay, I'll feel bad if I leave people out.
Yeah.
People get cut from football teams. People get left out. It happens. It's part of life.
Yeah.
I did a TED talk. I didn't make the cut, so I didn't get to go on stage, in front of the big audience, but I did it, and I auditioned and I did what I could. It's just the way life is. And kids have to learn that that's part of life.
Yeah.
Now, what happens though, is the kids, and I'm saying this, they're probably like 12 or 13 years old. What'll happen is if I invite kids, say I'm a kid and I invite 10 kids to go to the party, it's when those kids have the invitation and they go to other kids and say, I got invited to Jim's party. Oh, well, I didn't. Now the kids who were invited want to make the other kid feel bad.
Yeah.
That's not my fault. I invited my friends.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
see, so exclusion happens. It happens. Fishing is, where you get, it's kind of like what we would go through would be someone trying to get our bank account information.
Okay.
You get something that says, oh, your account's overdrawn and you got to go here or something, and they end up getting your bank account information.
Right.
So that they can use it and withdraw money from your account. That's phishing. Or you're trying to get a kid online to disclose information about himself that he doesn't want to disclose. In other words, it's a cyber way of making another kid vulnerable. This is why you get stuff all the time. Your passwords are stolen. You need to redo your password because somebody's got your password now, and that's phishing. They're always looking for information so that they can use it either to steal money or denigrate somebody. And then you have harassment, and that's just basically what we have. And at colleges, it's hazing. You have sexual harassment. You have harassment where I'm constantly haranguing you, giving you a hard time, picking on you. No physical harm, but I'm just making you feel uncomfortable. That's basically harassment. Impersonation's pretty easy. This is what happened with the kid with the computer.
Yeah, kid with the computer. Yeah.
He basically impersonated someone else. Okay, they got in trouble. He didn't.
Yeah.
But he ultimately did. And I was it's crazy. See, I'm one of these people that was always into killing a gnat with a hammer.
Yeah.
But I always knew that I had the ability to retract what I did. I could rescind this. I'm suspending you for 10 days. And, after I did a little dig, see, I never just suspended a kid. I do a little digging after I suspended them to find out just what really went on, because there's always something else that you miss, but you're basing it on the behavior of the kid at the time.
Right.
So I would do some digging. I'd call the kid up and I say, you can come back tomorrow. And they never saw anything like that before. They never did. And I thought that was one of my strong suits.
Well, you did the investigation.
Yeah, I did. I really did. But
Because,
my initial reaction was, I'm suspending you for 5 days, 10 days, whatever the
right,
case might be.
but that was superficial. You didn't really
That was,
dig into it.
and what is anyone learning from a 10-day suspension? I can't go to school. That's what they learn. But do they learn to change their behavior?
Right.
That's what we're looking. That's why you could put somebody in jail for 10 years. And if their behavior doesn't change, you're going to let him out. He's going to go back in again anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
Denigration, it describes when bullies just use cruel humor.
Okay. Cruel humor.
It's cruel humor, where you're picking on a weakness in another person. If someone has big ears, big head, too tall, too short, pimples on your face, braces, whatever, you're using cruel humor to pick on somebody.
Right.
Cell phone dissemination. It's used in cyberbullying, and it can also be a criminal act if the images depict underage individuals. You're basically sending pictures of another person, okay, who could be in a very compromised situation. This happens in high schools where they take pictures, they're at a party or something, and they take pictures of somebody who may not be completely clothed.
Gotcha.
So they do that. Now, just an aside for you, if you and I, which we never did, I'm sure we never did, at least I'm sure I never did, ever had an opportunity to take a picture of someone with like a girl with nothing on. And I wrote an article about this. It's called Society's Morality Hasn't Kept Up with Technology. First of all, if I took it with my little Instamatic camera or a Brownie camera that I had back then, I had to get the film developed.
True.
So there was always a waiting period.
Right.
Secondly, the photo shop in my town drank in my father's bar, the guy that owned it.
Right.
So what do you think he's going to do when he gets a picture that I turn in? I turn my film into him. He starts developing it, and there's a girl with no clothes on there. He's going to go to my father and say, where's these pictures coming from? What's your kid doing? So, and if a camera is used, there is a waiting period behind anything that you're going to do with those pictures. In other words, you take a picture with a cell phone now, it's click, send, you don't even give it a thought.
Yeah.
But with a camera where you got to take film and they get developed, and you're going to use it or you're going to disseminate it almost to try and blackmail somebody, you got to give that some thought. If in fact, okay, you're using and like the old Instamatic or a Polaroid camera, it's going to take you a little bit of time to start thinking about what you're doing.
Hey, Jim, can you discuss with us the parents, how they act and what can be done to resolve issues with them? Can you kind of give us, our audience, a little detail as to how you handle things with the parents?
The issues with parents, there was an old expression years ago that teachers spend 90% of their time dealing with 10% of the kids.
Yeah.
And that's basically what happens parentally, what administrators do, and teachers probably as well. They spend 90% of their time dealing with 10% of the parents who have the loudest mouth, the loudest voice, who want to complain the most. And if I was going to give advice to a young teacher who will, at 23 years old, a nice young teacher who comes out of college, nice girl, maybe she's teaching physics at a high school or something, or she's teaching in a middle school, and she's going to be intimidated by a loudmouth parent, whether it be male or female, the first thing I would tell her or him is that this person has matured physically, but not emotionally. And I want you to take the tack that you're going to have to deal with them in terms of facts. because they have come into you emotionally,
Right.
and their emotions are not where they should be. So if you're going to come in and give a report to, if this parent's going to come in and start giving you a hard time at a meeting or whatever the case may be, always make sure you have your ducks in a row. Always make sure that you have any behavioral referrals that were written. You have those documented. Always make sure that you have the grade book ready. Always make sure you can fight. I call it fighting with facts. Here are the facts. This is why this has happened. This is why he failed. This is why he was suspended. Everything has to be in a row for those parents. And it's usually 10%. It's 10%. If you got a classroom with 30 kids in it, you're going to get 3 kids with 3 parents that are going to give you all kinds of trouble.
Yeah.
Those are the ones we have to invest our time, and we have to call on all our skills to deal with those people.
Can you talk to us about grade inflation and how that can lead to problems?
Well, good grades are nice, but mastery is better. That's how I look at it. We give out grades to kids today. If a kid turns in no work,
Yeah.
he has to get a 50. They can't give him a 0. He has to get a 50. So that means for the next 3 marking periods, you average in a 50. You don't average in a 0.
Well, why is that?
That's because they will not allow you to, even if the kid fails with the 10, they will not allow you to give any kid a grade. And this is not just in New Jersey, it's all over, a grade lower than a 50. That's the way it works. They're already inflating the grade.
Right.
The next thing is, we don't do enough with kids to help them master content. If a kid is in the first grade, everybody thinks he leaves the first grade on the first grade level. He leaves on about 0.6, which means there was about, 40% of the stuff he just didn't get.
Right.
He goes to the second grade. He gets into the second grade. Okay. The teacher starts teaching him second grade material. He hasn't mastered some of the content from the first grade. So the teacher looks at the kid and, and it's almost, we're gonna teach you subtraction now, and you haven't learned addition. Okay. So when you get to a part where you have to add, use a calculator, or I'll come over and help you. So he never really learns how to add, but we're trying to teach him how to subtract. You never learned how to divide, but never learned how to multiply. We're going to try and teach him how to divide. And as we go through all of this, as this all starts to happen, we start to give kids grades for stuff that, grades that are much higher. And they go through the 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade. They get into around the 7th or 8th grade. The content gets a little bit tougher. Before you know it, people were telling him, there's one word I would like eliminated, Ron, from a teacher's vocabulary, unless it's absolutely true. And they'd have to figure that out on their own. And that word is awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Heard that word a lot.
He's 7 years old. You're awesome. Well, where am I going after awesome?
There's no place to go.
Awesome.
You're at the top.
I'm the best.
Yeah.
And oftentimes kids will believe they're just a little bit smarter than what they really are until somebody tells them. And that's usually when they're trying to get into college and they discover they can't get in because their board scores aren't good enough. Right now, today, kids feel good about themselves for no apparent reason. And we have to make them earn a little bit more rather than just handing it to them.
Right. Right. What is the potential for anti-bullying laws to go nationwide?
Going nationwide?
Yeah.
I think that we have most of those. I don't know what each state has, but I think that the based upon what happens in each state. That's what happened here in New Jersey. The kid committed suicide. It had to have an anti-bullying bill of rights. Anti-bullying laws had to go into place. So this in Michigan, I don't know what they have in Michigan. I don't know what they have in Connecticut after Sandy Hook. I don't know what they have, but I do know that they're taking closer looks at the mental health of the victims. And I think more money needs to be put into that area, in terms of mental health, mental wellness, and helping kids overcome depression and suicidal tendencies. What are the chances of them going nationwide? I think they're good, but the problem that we have is that it seemed like there has to be a tragedy before something like that happens.
Yeah. What is your takeaway message for people listening to this discussion concerning bullying in schools? You have a takeaway message?
Hey, bullying has been around since the flood.
Right.
People have gotten bullied since the flood. And some people, who have been bullied still carry the baggage of being bullied. And I think what we want to do is we want to realize and we want to help kids overcome the fear, the intimidation. I think we want to spend more time with the victims. And I want to make sure that we hold bullies accountable and we help make victims a little bit more resilient, because they carry that with them through their entire life. And sometimes people never realize their full potential, and it had everything to do with the behavior of one other kid in class.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what excites you going forward in your work?
What's that? I'm sorry, Ron.
What excites you going forward in your work?
At 67, I think the idea that I'm still writing courses, I'm still teaching,
Yeah.
which I like. They still consider me, here in my neck of the woods, I guess a little bit of an expert, because they call me whenever something happens. All I know is CNN or Fox hasn't called me yet, but there's always hope.
Never know. Yeah.
You never know. I'm on your show now, so
You're on my show. I'll put in a good word for you.
We don't know what's going to happen. But I think just being able to continue to do what I do. I love my writing. I'm writing another short book right now called Consistency: 12 Things That we need to start doing and keep doing. And I like the list that I put together. It's something that some stuff that I've been doing for a long time. And just, watching changes take place that are positive and relishing those small things that happen. It's like you don't want to ever see, these things that happen in Michigan happen again. Although
Right.
for some reason in your head, you say it won't be the last time. And I'd like to just, what excites me is maybe I can give people hope so that they can overcome some of the.
Well, that's what this show's all about, giving people hope. And just listening to you, how authentic you are and genuine. Jim, how can people contact you? They want to know about you, get books, that kind of thing. What's the best way they can
go on my website, bullyproofclassroom.com.
Bullyproof.
Bullyproofclassroom.com.
Okay.
You go there. I got a store there, and everything there is relatively, it's cheap. But the thing is, you're looking, it's digital. Some of it's hardcover. Anti-Bullying 101, the book, that's there. That's one of my, one of the things I wrote, or I really thought that, and then there's probably 101 more things that people can do. And that's important to me. I want people to read that, because there's things in there that you're not going to find in a lot of other bullying books.
Right.
You're not going to find it.
I'm going to let. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
And of course, the podcast, Anti-Bullying 101 podcast on Spotify and, in other places, Anchor and so on.
Okay, great. I'm going to list all that information in the podcast notes. Thanks, Jim, for taking time to be on the podcast, and I wish you all the best going forward in your important mission to make this a better world. Comments and suggestions to improve the podcast, you can email us at itsawrapwithrap@gmail.com. Our website is itsawrapwithrap.com. Drop your email address there. You can get on the mailing list. We have a Facebook page and a Facebook group. It's a Rap with Rap. Instagram, It's a Rap with Rap podcast. And all the episodes are on YouTube. It's a Rap with Rap, the podcast uncut. Thanks for listening. Please stay safe for now. And for now, it's a wrap.